And I'll talk about each of these and put them in a historical context and give you some examples that hopefully you can connect to in your business, whether you're in B2B, B2C, services. It really doesn't matter. I think it really applies to any industry that you might imagine. And I'll start with the efficiency, because this continues to be one of the major ways companies try to create success for themselves in terms of shareholder value, profitability, and efficiency. Another word for it might be cost, a cost focus. And in a historical context, I've chosen a product that resembles this. It's, I think you all know this brand here. It's the Ford Model T. And the real success behind this, of course, the big innovation, as you will know, was the assembly line. It was going from batch manufacturing to really producing on a mass industrialized scale. So if you want a visual metaphor for driving success on an efficiency basis, it typically says, well, if this is what I want to achieve, can I do it with less? Can I do it with fewer inputs? Okay. This topic is alive and well today. The annual CEO survey that PwC does, over 1,000 CEOs interviewed. This came out last April. The next one's going to come out this year. And of course, this is in 2013, and we're already at this point a good 5 to 6 years into the global recession. Yet, 70% of CEOs said they would implement a major cost reduction initiative. And I assume, amongst you in this room, cost-cutting and efficiency is still a major topic, and it has to be. There's no way about it. It's important, and you've got to focus on costs. But you can also see in the limit going to the future, right, there's a limit to how much cost you can cut. At some point, you're going to cutting not fat, you're going to be cutting into the meat and eventually into the bone. And it's certainly not a way to grow the business. It's a way to grow profits, at least in the short term, but not to grow the business. I always admired the cost-cutting guys because they are branding gurus. And I'm here in Denmark. I don't speak Danish, but I know you speak Greek and you can read Japanese because look at this. I mean, they've branded their processes, right? You can read Greek, Six Sigma. I mean, it can be applied to anything, but end of the day, probably most of the Six Sigma processes are applied to cost cutting. So that's the Greek. What do we have over here? People are whispering it. You can say it with pride, you're CEOs, right? It's Kaizen. It's Japanese. It's also about cost cutting. The second wave, and that started just after World War II, as we had the economic miracle here in Europe, that's when things started to change. Now, does anybody recognize this box over here? What is it called? The value chain. What was it called before Michael Porter called it the value chain? Logistics or the supply chain, right? The supply chain between companies, logistics within the company. And the idea behind the value chain was fundamentally different from an efficiency standpoint. It was much more focused on effectiveness. Now, the end result might look similar, but the approach is very different. So what Michael Porter, and why we talk about value added, we said, well, let's say we have this level of input. Can we get more out of them? I mean, the net result might be the same. You achieve more with fewer people, but the focal point and the whole philosophy behind it is very, very different. So it focused on the value added, and it looked across the different elements of the supply chain and logistics and said, can we get more out of this? When you're looking at effectiveness from a product standpoint, when we talk about quality, we're talking about the quality of the product. Measurable differences. And I'll leave you with one example which I think really brings this home. So here's the original Gillette Safety Razor. Okay? Some of you might remember this product. I'm seeing a lot of nodding heads. What was the big innovation? The next big thing Gillette came out with, many years later. 2 blades. That's exactly right. And I think all of us remember those advertisements. They were absolutely fantastic. Right? What does the first blade do, and what does the second blade do? Do you remember? The first, It gently pulls the hair out of the follicle. The second one swoops in right afterwards, cuts it. What happens to the remainder of the stubble? It disappears under the surface of the skin. Absolutely brilliant. I was convinced, and I wasn't even shaving when that ad came out. Okay? So the Gillette sensor came out at that time. Now, when I was at MIT, the first thing I did, I spent 3 weeks working with a company, and that was Gillette. It was right across the river, and I was in the John Hancock Tower. And it was about a year after they came out with this product. Because the next big innovation, 7.5 years and 22 patents later, what was their next big thing? 3 blades. I mean, it was unbelievable, right? Who thought of this? Right? They said, well, if 1 is better than 2, 2 might be better than, 3 might be better than 2. And this was huge. Now, of course, I'm sitting there thinking, hair follicle, under the skin, what does a 3rd blade do? Exfoliation. Maybe that's what it does, right? But that's not really the big story, because I joined Gillette for those 3 weeks because panic ensued. Right? Paul talked about innovation. And Gillette, that prided themselves on innovation, was out-innovated. Because Schick, or some of you might know them as Wilkinson, what did they come out with? Within only 6 months of Gillette launching 3 blades, 4 blades. They didn't see it coming. I mean, this was crazy. This is the top shaving company in the world, and number 2 out-innovated them. Not by a little, right? A whole extra blade, right? That's 33% more. Okay, so you can measure this qualitatively. It's like Volvo, right? It's like adding 33% more airbags than Volvo has. Okay? So this was dramatic, but it took them 5 more years to come up with a new innovation. And most of you will have this in your closet, right? Fusion. How many blades? 5 blades. Have you counted? They have even one extra one on the top, so for, the sculpting, if you want, just in case Schick tries to out-innovate them again. Okay? And I have something here which I probably shouldn't share, but I'm assuming this will go nowhere else. But they're already focusing on the next big thing. Because another part of the story is, even if you compete on effectiveness, your competitors will be fairly close. And you might have to invest in quality and effectiveness, but it doesn't set you apart. Or increasingly for a less amount of time. Because everybody's benchmarking and copying you, and it's a global competition. And I don't care what sector you're in, if it's pharmaceuticals, if it's heavy machinery, it doesn't matter. Can I ask, how many of you chose your phone? This was about 75% here, which I'm astounded with. How many of you chose your iPhone this way, where you looked at the feature of the iPhone, and you compared it feature by feature with Samsung, let's say, and then you did a weighted average and you ran a little regression and came out with... This is not how you chose an iPhone, is it? You did not look at effectiveness, did you? So at least in one instance, effectiveness was not the driver of your behavior. And I don't think it was efficiency either, because you didn't look at the price, did you now? So if it's not efficiency and if it's not effectiveness, it has to be something else. Now it turns out, of course, the big competitor for Apple today is Samsung. Samsung still believes that this is how you chose the phone. Okay, and here's the latest ad from Samsung. It says it doesn't take a genius. The next big thing is already here. And they talk about the Galaxy S3. And they're comparing it to the iPhone 5. As if this is how you chose the phone. They obviously don't know their customers. Okay? Because this is not how you chose. The way you chose your Apple was very different.
Welcome to Phone Mart. How may I help you?
iPhone 4. Where is the iPhone 4? I need an iPhone 4.
Oh, I'm very sorry, but we are currently sold out. However, we did finally get some more HTC Evos in.
What? What is that? Is it an iPhone?
No, it is that 4G phone on Sprint.
If it's not an iPhone, why would I want it?
Well, it's similar to an iPhone, but has a bigger screen.
I don't care.
The internet speeds are around 3 times faster.
I don't care.
It has a higher resolution camera on both the front and the back.
I don't care.
And it doesn't require you to be on Wi-Fi to use video chat.
I don't care.
Its battery is replaceable, as is the memory card.
I don't care.
It is highly customizable, everything from the widgets to the icons, the fonts, and even has video wallpaper.
I don't care.
The monthly bill is cheaper.
I don't care.
It fucking prints money.
I don't care.
It can grant up to 3 wishes, even if one of those wishes is for an iPhone.
I don't care.
And it goes on and on and on. It gets very rude, so I figured I would stop here, right? I could show the rest to my MBA students, but this is a refined audience. So we're at the third E, and I kind of went through the first two a little bit faster. But the third E is experience. And it's a topic I think we all think about, but we don't act on. And as a poster child, I chose Steve Jobs, the late Steve Jobs over here. And I chose this particular photo because he's on stage with the iPhone and he's absolutely delighted. And he's talking to his audience about this wonderful product. And one of the things I say about Apple is they test their product very differently than their competitors. Their competitors look at the product, right? Just like we look at the pixels, the quality of the image, the quality of the sound, and they test the product. But apparently Apple, while they care about this, they look at the delight on the faces of the user. What is the experience the user has with the product? And this is something very, very different. It's a very different way to think about value. It's a very different way to think about quality. You can have worse quality, but a better experience, depending on how you define quality. So the product I chose is actually this iPod here. And what's interesting about the iPod, I'll show you the sales figures. This is Tim Cook here, the current CEO. It was launched in 2001, and then sales were quite slow. But then they took off. Anybody know why sales took a few years to take off? The product itself didn't change. Yeah. I mean, he might have. And there's a few things, made it available for Windows and so forth, but that's the main thing. The iTunes. That's what it was. And maybe it was mixed with that kind of a marketing strategy, but the point is, up until then, the iPod was just a product. And when iTunes was introduced, it became an experience. And it became a comprehensive experience from buying, managing, and listening to your music. Because nobody wants to own a piece of product. They want to use it. And they thought about that experience from the beginning until the end. And that made sales take off. And this is something that is really at the heart of what Apple is about. And I think we don't often talk about it, but I think you'll be convinced by some of the examples that I've kind of dug out over the years. So here's the counter example. This is Lex Fenwick. He's the CEO of Bloomberg, or was. And this was on the front page of the Financial Times. This is when they launched their new product. We're launching audio and video terminals and hope to God it's what the market wants. Well, you might laugh about this, but think back to your own products. How many times have you produced something in search of application, in search of market, or where the market surprised you with what they actually did with what you produce? How much do you actually know about what your customers are doing, what different segments of customers are doing with your products and services? We often don't know very much at all. And so here's I'll come back to this. So here's an old ad. It's a bit grainy from Apple. But I think this will show you the dramatic difference of this is a product orientation And Apple uses quite a different orientation. So this is an old ad from Apple.
After me.
You think I can get on here? Sure.
Yeah, give me a minute, man. Been staring out there all day. What are you doing?
Testing.
Testing what?
Computers. Trying to figure out which computer is the most powerful.
Well, that's easy. The one with the most memory, megahertz, MIPS, you know.
No, I don't think so. I think the most powerful computer is the one that people actually use.
Hi, Ken.
There's a computer with the power to change the way you look at computers. Macintosh. The power to be your best.
That's not really a fair comparison. People like using the Mac.
Yeah. And you saw that old Apple logo there, right? So this is from the 1980s. Let's dial forward to the I think it's actually, this is about 8 years ago.
Hello, I'm a Mac.
I'm a PC.
Ready to get started?
Well, not quite. Got a lot to do. What's your big plan?
I might make a home movie or maybe create a website, try out my built-in camera. I can do it all right out of the box, so what about you?
Well, first I got to download those new drivers, and I got to erase the trial software that came on my hard drive.
Sweet.
Then I've got a lot of manuals to read.
You know, it sounds like you have a lot of stuff to do before you do any stuff, so I'm just going to get started because I'm kind of excited. Let me know when you're ready.
Actually, the rest of me's in some other boxes, so I'll meet up with you later.
So again, it's all about the doing. This is the latest ad for the iPhone 5G, and you cannot read the small print. The iPhone that lets you do more than ever. Of course, they also highlight some of their technical benefits, but it's all about doing. If you look at their new iPad Air, that whole ad comparing to the Pencil, it's all about what you can do with it. Writing music, taking notes, exploring. When you go to their website, this is from maybe a year ago, click to play. That's on their website. It doesn't say the price. We're on sale. It's a deal. I don't have to convince you. I don't have to give you a discount. All I have to convince you on what this product can do for you. Have you play with it. This is the Apple store in London. They have this theater in there, a stage. You will walk in and you think you're in a theater because they have this playbill. 1 month they have the photo series. Everything you can do with photo. The other month they have a music series. And these are free, and people can go inside. I really encourage you to, if you do go to London, take a look at the flagship store on Oxford Street. It's like an amusement park. People are in there, touching, feeling the product. You go to the Vodafone store next door. Where are the products? Behind glass. Can you use them? Are they connected to the internet? No. Can you even feel the ones, like the phones? The cheap ones. The expensive ones are in a glass vitrine. No, because the battery is replaced, because somebody might steal it, and it's on a sort of a cord. So it's a radically different way to business. And think about it. If people don't use your products, what value have you actually created? Before the iPhone came out, all of you had a smartphone. You just didn't know it. Before the Apple iPhone came out, for this audience, your phone had between 100 and 180 different functions. Why? Because some clever scientists cooked these functions up and stuck them in the phone at some cost which you paid for. How many functions did you use? 3, including the alarm clock. Okay? So then, if you haven't created value, it's very easy to switch you. It's going to be a discussion about price. This was just this summer. And this is when Samsung overtook Apple for smartphone sales worldwide. And this was the CEO's comment on it. Does a unit of market share matter if it's not being used? For us, it matters that people use our products. We really want to enrich people's lives. And you can't enrich somebody's life if the product is in the drawer. If you look at the figures from Black Friday in the US, just this November, and there was a figure which they showed what proportion of online sales that were tablet-based came from the the Apple operating system. 80%. The market share, this is in the US, the market share Apple has is far, far smaller, but the usage share is far higher. So think about what are the metrics you use to evaluate your business success. Are you looking at consumer-based metrics or something else? Or is it just sales-based? And the real story here is the following. If you think about the value chain, this is where the customer is. At this pointy end. And they're paying for the value that the value chain you and your partners have created. Conceptually, that's how it's drawn. Have you ever wondered about that? And the word consumption, if you think about the fire consumed the forest, it basically destroyed it through use. We don't think of our customers as partners in the value creation process. But I would suggest you haven't created any value if all you achieved was your customers to pay for something that they don't actually use. And I think that's why I chose Apple as the topic, because for them, the customer is the ultimate part of the value creation process. So I'll leave you with three words: efficiency, effectiveness, and experience, and just leave you with three questions. One, what dominates your thinking today? And maybe I should do a show of hands. But really, what keeps you up? Where are your major efforts, your major processes and initiatives within your company today? What are they focused on? Efficiency, effectiveness, or experience? There'll be a mix. How are you differentiated from your competitors? Of course you have to have the best technical quality, but does it actually differentiate you? Is that why customers choose you? Or do you just need to be good enough and then they choose you based on something else? And maybe that something else, just maybe, is the last one of these three. So I'll end with that question: which offers the best opportunity to add value in the future?